Nissan has a really rich history with 6-cylinder, 2-door sports cars that are simple and highly enjoyable, to the point where the 350 and the 370Z have become really popular cult cars that a lot of people modify. But I'm out in California because this car, the new Z, as it's called, or the 400Z to a lot of enthusiasts, we're not going to be able to get this in Europe or the UK, despite the fact they will be building right-hand drive ones in Japan and Australia. I want to know what it's like because I really enjoyed these ones, the older ones. So that's what we're going to do in this episode, and we found some amazing roads to take it on. We're also going to take it on a little bit of a trip to a breakfast gathering out here in the Los Angeles forest. I'm Jonny Smith, this is The Late Break Show, and this episode is proudly supported by blackcircles.com, Britain's largest online tyre retailer. Right, time for the Z to fire up. So clutch down, press the starter, get a sweep of the dials. Yeah, look at the graphics. I'm not offended by the fact they're simple. I'm not offended by the fact that I've got a manual handbrake. In fact, I'm positively excited. Believe me. You got the American driveway. Oh, scrape. I don't know why they make them so damn aggressive, but they do. So we're in the Angeles National Park, National Forest, which I've never been to. It took me about an hour and 20 minutes to get up here this morning. Left early before the horrific 405, Highway 405 got too busy. It's just a hateful motorway, basically. So what do we know about the Z or the Z? Well, what we do know is the fact that it's based upon the very old now 370Z, the previous car, which I can't remember when it finished production, but it seems like an age ago. And Nissan have made a point by saying this is more of a GT car. I think they've purposely made sure that the damping and everything is slightly on the softer side. I don't mean like pillowy. So it's not extra intense. And I think I know why. I think I know why they've done this. These are some of the best roads around LA, which is why the Good Vibes Breakfast Club congregates here. And I need to say a big thank you to Zach Clapman from the Smoking Tyre YouTube channel and podcast, because good old Zach was the one that pointed me in the direction of this breakfast club. And these are the roads that they test their cars on. So lovely cluster of gauges, the 3 gauges there nestled into the top of the dash. Turbo boost on your left, and turbo speed in the middle. All real needles doing real things with a real handbrake to my right there. So it's not a very loud car, and in terms of turbo, it's pretty instantaneous. I mean, you get real chuff after like 2,500. I think quite a low red line, 6,800 RPM maximum. But again, you know, 400 horsepower, 350 pounds-feet. I think it's about 70 horsepower more than this engine had in the Infinity cars when it was NA. What a road, what a flipping road. Feels like I'm in Spain. I've been to LA a good few times in my life, in my career. I've never been here. Mulholland Drive is probably a twisty road that I can compare it to. Do you know what I like about this immediately? I mean, yeah, the roads are definitely benefiting. is the fact that it feels really short wheelbase and kind of like stocky and hunkered. And I like that a lot. I like that a lot. And although the suspension, I mean, the suspension has been excellent driving through sort of concrete jungle of LA where there's loads of potholes and nastiness, and the UK roads at the moment are in the worst state I can remember. So I think the way they've damped it is so that it's got a good amount of suspension travel. You can see the car doesn't look low on the outside, which isn't sexy, but what it is it's prime fodder for somebody to buy it and modify it and make it their own, tweak it, and that's precisely, I think, what Nissan have done with this. So what actually is the Z? Well, weirdly, underneath this, the whole car's a bit of a parts bin special. Underneath it is a 350Z chassis, and that car's been off sale for years. So it's still front engine, rear wheel drive. You order it as a manual or an auto, hashtag save the manuals. You probably want to order it as a manual, 6-speed. Under the bonnet here, which is raised, and actually the whole car's kind of styled very much like an old, you know, Z Fairlady or a 240 or a 260. But under there is a 3-litre V6 twin turbo. So it takes the naturally aspirated engine, apparently, I think, from the Q50 and the Q60 Infinity, which we didn't get in the UK, stuck some turbos on it, and it's a 400 horsepower, 350 pounds-feet of torque car. Come round to the side. I mean, I love the front. I love these sort of shaped eyes, that crease, the power bulge in the bonnet, and that open mouth. This is probably the most boring colour I've seen it in. They have a number of wonderful colours that they come in. I'm actually filming this at a really popular driving area, and they've just resurfaced this road. So every driver and his dog have come here to experience the new tarmac. I don't blame them, frankly. That's why the Breakfast Club event is held here. So slightly misleadingly, there's 3 specs of Z, and the names are a bit weird. So this is the entry-level car, but it's called the Sport. The one above this is called the Performance, which is $10,000 extra. It comes with limited slip diff as standard. It comes with upgraded brakes. It comes with forged, lighter 19-inch raised alloys and a couple of other bits and bobs, stickier Bridgestone tyres. This, the entry-level car that I've borrowed, 18-inch normal alloy wheels, and this has got Yokohama Advan Sport 245 45 18s. Now, whether it's for sporty purposes or just sensible daily driving purposes, when it comes to replacing your tyres, head to blackcircles.com. Head to the Black Circles website, enter your vehicle registration number and your postcode, and then you'll find the most suitable tyres for your car and your budget. There are thousands of reviews of different tyres from real customers to help you choose the best tyres for your car. And with the Black Circles Click and Fit service with over 2,000 tyre fitting partners, there will be a garage or a mobile tyre fitter conveniently located near you. Look at the profile. Come around here and see the profile of this, because it's so short wheelbase with hardly any overhangs. I think it looks really, really cool. There's like a double bubble crease in the roof. This kind of window line reminds me of the R35 Skyline GTR a bit. But this is the entry-level model, so it doesn't have a little lip spoiler at the back, and it doesn't have a little chin spoiler at the front. So this is the sort of purest, simplest shape. I have to say, it's the most boring colour you can order it in. If you're going to go for the top spec car, which is limited to 240 units, it's called the Proto spec. That comes with bronze raised rims and yellow calipers and this amazing yellow paint called Ikusuchi Yellow Pearl, which I think looks mega. And you can get this in a two-tone, which looks spot on. So because this has the DNA of the 350 and the 370 and a sort of retro body shell which has a little bit of, 240, 260Z up front, this back end here, yeah, I don't know about you, but I think it's more of an S13 Silvia kind of back end with this blacked in panel and these kind of like lozenge shaped brake lights. I think it looks fantastic. Twin tailpipes here, and it's not a very loud engine as standard. In fact, there's a lot going on here. You'll see in that profile there, it's quite high off the ground. and they're quite small wheels, and this is all tactical. This car's very keenly priced at just under 40 grand, $1,000. And I think what they're doing is they're doing exactly what Toyota did with the GT and now the GR86. They are offering a car which the owner will immediately, A, like because it's quite analog and quite simple, and B, they'll want to make some changes to the car to spec it themselves. They'll want to modify it. Probably the owner of that 350 over there will look at it and go, probably want to lower it a bit, different rims, etc., etc. It reminds me, this car, of a couple of vehicles, one of which is like a Vauxhall Holden Monaro. When I tested those when they were new, you didn't have many buttons. Traction control off was off, like this is it, off. We're not dicking around now. If you commit, then you have to understand that the adult takes responsibility, and I personally like that. So sort of second gear, 2,500 RPM, bury the throttle. It's weird, isn't it? Because the engine's quite muted, it kind of lulls me into a false sense of thinking that it's quite chilled out, but it's just very pliable. I think it'll just let you cruise like I did in the morning breakfast traffic in LA, and then if you wanted to, it can really give you something. Tunnel. Should have cracked the window then. I mean, I remember when the 350Z was launched, and I remember when the 370Z was launched, and I drove them both in period when they were new. I always preferred the 50 to the 70 in terms of looks and the way it behaved. Even though the 370 was a more refined car, they were both, I mean, very physical gear changes, and everything was quite firm and kind of macho, a little bit chest wig. But I like that about it. And again, the same as the previous cars, the 50 and the 70. In here, it's very simple. You can definitely see where they haven't spent much money. But am I caring? I don't think I am caring, no. I really don't think I am. Nissan is a car company that's quite sensible normally. You have the GTR, I know, but that's like 100 years old now, and probably isn't going to be replaced properly. This sort of came out of nowhere. We didn't realise this was going to happen. You got Toyota doing the GR stuff, which is amazing. And Nissan are coming in and going, I tell you what, we're going to go back to our roots with a coupe, two-seat, simple sports car that's really affordable with a manual gearbox. Hallelujah. Just when you think all this stuff is going to be extinct, they bring this out. For goodness sake, if you're thinking of buying one, buy one, because if nobody buys it, they won't ever come back, will they? Anyway, let's have a look in the cabin. Now, a bit like all of the hot Scoobies over the years, and a bit like the predecessors of this car, you know, the 50 and the 70, you didn't really buy those cars for beautiful interior quality. That's not what this is about. There's pleasant analog things like manual handbrake. Obviously this is 6-speed manual, and buttons. There is a touchscreen here in the infotainment, but I mean, the whole infotainment's very lo-fi. The reversing camera looks like something from a Game Boy. The buttons are all there, steering wheel buttons are all there. This is a simple car. This is a car for people that enjoy driving and they just want to get straight to the point with HVAC and stuff like that, which I really like. The seats even, they're quite boring actually. They're quite boring looking seats. I drove from here, from the centre of LA to here for about an hour and 20 minutes, and they're not very comfortable. But again, I'm looking at this car going, well, if I was to buy it, I'd probably buy some Buddy Club seats or something like that. Take these seats out, wrap them in cling film and put them in the shed. Change the gear knob. Steering wheel's great though, with that Z sitting right in the middle. But my favourite bit, hot Camaro. My favourite bit of the interior is this here. Angled towards the driver, 3 really nice peaked gauges, manual, analog needled gauges. On the far left, turbo boost. In the middle, turbo speed, so RPM times 10,000, and then a voltmeter, old school. Really, really pleasantly old school. And start button here, and on the left, by my left knee, traction control off. Press it once, done, that's it. no traction. Nissan have made this car knowing that this will be the last Z or Z that hasn't got any electrification added to it. Bear in mind, this is a company that's been, that's pledged to spend $18 billion on 25 electrified models in the next 5 years, 6 years. But here we are in something that's really not electrified at all. It's the opposite of all of that. And I really sincerely hope that people appreciate it, that manufacturers are going out on a bit of a limb at the moment in 2023 and building stuff like this, stuff with manual handbrakes and not particularly sexy plastics and vinyls, and actually not very comfortable or good looking seats. But this sort of collection of parts bin items clothed in this amazing retro body, it feels special, and it's for someone that appreciates driving, engagement and driving. If you don't appreciate engagement and driving, and if you order this as an auto, then really it's not a car for you, because just like the GR86 that I have reviewed on the Late Break Show, and I'll put a link above my head, I was really taken by it. You can see its flaws immediately, which is, that's not great, that's not great. The seats look very bland out of just a normal saloon car, and they're not very comfortable. But I'm looking at that strut brace back there, good amount of boot space, and I'm really, really enjoying the controls. Two other things I didn't mention. A couple of the body panels are aluminium, the tailgate's aluminium, the doors and the bonnet are aluminium. It also has the largest fuel filler flap in the world. I don't know if you can see it, it's somewhere around there. It's frigging huge. Look at the size of it. Look at the size of it. I don't know why it's so big. It's absolutely massive. And it doesn't matter which spec car you get, the engine and output of the engine remains identical. In fact, let's have a look under the bonnet. Right, here we go. If you're wondering why I don't have my normal car pervert notebook, I've actually got a Toyota Gazoo racer one. It's because I left it in a barn find 2 days ago where I was filming, and I'm still waiting to get it back. Anyway, on to more important things. There is the 3-litre V6 twin turbo motor. It's busy in there, but it's got strut braces front and rear, because of course this is a 2-seat car. You've just got a big luggage area with that big brace, just like the 350 and 370Zs had. It's like a feature of the interior. So these lozenge shapes in the grille here, I've just realised now, they're mimicked in the tail lights. So up here, very 240, 260Z, and back there, very Silvia to me. Whatever, I think it's a really cool shape. So if I press traction control, I'm going to do a 0 to 60 while there's nobody behind me. 3, 2, 1. Bit of axle tramp on there. Well, I left a pair of 11s, so maybe this does have the limited slip diff fitted, this particular model. I couldn't tell before we started filming, but the performance model gets it as standard. It's really much quicker, this engine. It snarls when you really open it up. It really does start to snarl and rasp. I love a 6-cylinder engine. I love the way they sound. I love the sort of smoothness. But yeah, this really does kind of take off. You kind of forget it's not a very big car for 400 horses, really, with 3 pedals. You know, would Nissan have made this car if it weren't for the influence of films like Fast and Furious and the whole fever around JDM performance cars? And I think that's why I'm not offended by the simplicity and the kind of lo-fi of all this, because it reminds me, and this is it, I think this is it, it reminds me of that heyday of sort of late 90s, maybe mid late 90s, early 2000s Japanese cars where build quality was really good, interiors were not sexy, but drivetrains were excellent and power was there, enjoyment, wrapped in a car that was not big. So the boot, of course, I said it's a two-seater only like the other ones were. Big visible strut brace, big visible strut towers coming up around here. So it's got 10% more torsional rigidity than the 370, even though it's the same chassis. So multi-link back end, double wishbone aluminium front end there. You can put loads of luggage in these for two people, that's plenty. What I love about this car is that every time I look at it, I think it's a bit of a blank canvas for what's to come. If you were to buy it, you probably wouldn't leave it alone. In the same way that Toyota's got that from the GT and the GR86. It's a car that will hopefully have that cult following, or continue the cult following that that thing over there, cars like the 350, really own. Yeah, very nice. Yeah. This is it. This is the Good Vibes Breakfast Club. I'm here. Well, here we are, Good Vibes Breakfast Club. So the idea, I believe, with this is there's actually no food here, there's no breakfast, it's just breakfast time, and it's a small gathering, no egos, you never know what you're going to get. Every Friday morning from about 8:39, I've pulled up and I've immediately seen there's actually a 350Z here today, which is really good to see one again, and a clean one that isn't modified or sort of ghetto drifted. I am your father, Luke. Honestly, as a British person, so much better without no front number plates. I wish we were allowed to run no front number plates. Just as we arrived here, a really nice new 911 GT3 whizzed off. But then there's, I know this is a popular kind of Porsche hangout spot. Beautiful 993 there. There's a clown shoe. Corvette Z8. Z08. Very nice. Boxster Spider. With colour-coded coffee cup.
Gotta have the couple.
It's colour-coded coffee cup.
Your stupid fact for the day on this car, it has 50,000 miles on it.
Does it?
Yeah.
50?
Yeah.
Wow. That's the same amount as that 350Z, I think, which is what, nearly 20 years old. That's really impressive. So let's have a look down here. I saw this when I was fetching breakfast. The NSX, the Wolf car, on 3 spokes, I noticed. Look at those. Triforce Zelda. The most 90s wheels I've seen in a long time. So a mint NSX next to a fairly ratty E30, which looks like it might have had an engine fire at some point. Look at that bloody thing. This was the 911 that I followed in, actually. Just seeing it on these twisty roads was epic. If you can hear a crackle over my head, it's the power lines. It's a bit scary, actually, but It's just what I've noticed immediately from, you know, an hour ago. I was on the 405 motorway, which is loud, annoying, very, very smoggy. Up here, nice and clean, pretty quiet. So that's the Good Vibes Breakfast Club done, but I've got to go. We've got to carry on with the review of this Z, or Z. Let's go. Interesting to hear back the comments from people at the Breakfast Club on this Z. Or 400Z as some people are referring to it. And it's, a couple of people didn't like it because they thought that Nissan hadn't moved the game on enough and that it was a bit of a lazy parts bin special. But then again, more people referred to it in a positive way because of exactly that. We live in a world now where there's a lot of over sophistication, and this is not that. You know, because it uses the underpinnings that have come and gone before, just with this new kind of retro future body shell clothing, that's what I like about it. And I think the more I drive this, the more I'm logging in my head, like, if I bought one, what would I do to kind of tweak it? Not like radically change it, just tweaks, personal little custom touches. And you know, I think I would lower it a bit because it sits a bit too high, but that's okay. 40mm drop, easy, slightly firmer ride. And the interior thing, it is very much along the GR86 and also the Subaru mantra of like reminding you that you're not buying this car for posh interiors. You're buying this car because it's very drivable, good, resilient drivetrain. You know, I'm going to crack a window here because I'm hopefully going to hear the engine. Hang on. I'm actually getting more wind noise than an engine. It is, because it's turbo, it is a bit hushed. But I think where this wins over the Supra is, although the Supra is probably a tighter drive and obviously a newer chassis, this engine is more charismatic and more charismatic than the Supra and the GR86. Because this is the entry-level model that I've got, there's no spoiler on the front, there's no lip spoiler on the rear. It's just a very pure car. I think it's got beautiful looks. So when you bury it really hard, you'll get that 350 pounds-feet of torque. And it's quite deceivingly quick, I think. It's one of those cars where you feel like, you know, it might be going relatively quick. You look at the speedo and you go, sugar plum fairy, I've got to really rein this in. Otherwise I'm going to get some state trooper, sheriff, police person, I don't understand the policing system in the States, somebody getting very cross with you and wanting for you to put your hands on the hood. I don't want to do that. And I'm driving it harking back to, you know, when I was a print journalist, when the 370Z and the 350 were launched, and driving those as a print journalist, thinking they felt special. The interiors weren't great, but the way the car drove, it felt special. It wanted you to engage with it. It had that analog essence that I think so many of us crave. And this is not a big car, so I can position it on the road. I say this in so many of my reviews about, you know, narrower, shorter cars. You can explore them better on smaller roads, especially in the UK. So actually, suddenly 400 horsepower, you know, is a lot of power on a car which is only 30 kilos heavier than the 370Z, despite having, you know, more power. I'm really enjoying this. I never say this, I always forget to say it. I actually have a podcast that I do with a chap called Richard Porter, who is the script editor of Grand Tour and Top Gear, as was. It comes out every Monday and it's called Smith and Sniff. And I should be promoting this in all of my videos and I always forget because I'm terrible. So have a watch. No, don't have a watch because it's an oral thing. Have a listen. Have a listen. Please do order it with a limited slip diff. And please do not order it with a 9-speed auto. I'm not against autos. I have a couple of automatic cars, but this is not the car for an auto. In the same way that a GR86 is not a car for an auto. Right. I don't know how well this sounds, but we've got a tunnel, so I'm gonna such a barky little but creamy smooth 6. Whether you call it the Nissan Z or the Nissan Z, it kind of doesn't matter. I'm annoyed. Why am I annoyed? I'm annoyed because this car, as I suspected, gets under your skin. The simplicity of it, the engagement of it is what we like, us car people. It's not a massive car, it's got plenty of power. And although the interior is a bit rubbish in places, there's so much scope to improve it. And I think that's the thing. A, if you bought this car, you wouldn't be able to resist tweaking with it here and there. And Nissan bloody knows that, which is why they've made it the price point that they have. And they're hopefully carrying on the legacy of the 350s and the 370s. And I'm annoyed because we are never going to get it in the UK or Europe, which is deeply unfair given how much we loved the earlier Z cars. Anyway, what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. I hope you've really enjoyed this episode of The Late Break Show. I'm going to go off and enjoy some of this fresh tarmac because it's bloody lovely.